This will be a full look at Lyka Smith VR. When you enter the account page, you'll be presented with your offline accounts and a button to sign in online. The offline accounts that you'll have available are accounts that you previously signed in as online, and the scenes that you have associated with them are scenes that you previously saved while online. Here you see I have scene 1 and scene 2. However, when I sign in online, you'll see that I have more scenes available to me online. When you enter a scene, you'll be presented with the tool bench, which is fixed to the ground. You can experience LykaSmith VR both seated and standing. I'm seated at the moment. However, it's also accessible to people who are standing. You don't need to physically bend over to pick up a tool. You just need to point at it and press down the grip button. The turntable now rotates the scene around the average point of all visible objects in the scene. So if I move the skull over here, it'll rotate around the models in the scene over there. I picked up the manipulator tool. One of the main features of the manipulator tool is to allow you to rotate and translate the models in the scene. And as you do, you'll see a line visualizing the distance that you've moved the objects and the angle. If you look at the controller, you'll see the angle measurement here. If you hold down the grip button, you'll toggle incremental steps, which means that the transformations that you apply will be locked to these increments when you hold down the grip button. So here, without the grip button, it's free motion, and with the grip button, it's locked to 15 degrees. You can also toggle it at will while rotating. So here it's locked to 15 degrees, and here I release the grip, and it's free motion. This also applies for translation. If I move this to a larger number, you can see now it's locked to 44.93 millimeters. You can also translate in multiple axes at a time. Another feature of the manipulator tool is the pivot mode, which you access by pressing down the joystick button. It is visualized with a white sphere in the center of the gizmo. By pointing and clicking on your model, you can choose a new pivot for it, and you can also just use both the translation and rotation gizmos to rotate and translate the pivot. Here I've tilted the pivot so that now it points. It's not aligned with the global coordinate system anymore. However, if I want to quickly move the model up and down, I can use the secondary button on the controller to switch to global coordinates quickly. And then with the same secondary button, I can switch back to the local coordinates. In pivot mode, the secondary button aligns the pivot with the global axis. If you look at the hierarchy menu, you'll see that the colors of the objects in the scene update in real time. The second tool is the cutter tool, which is only available in online mode. Once you select an object, you'll be able to choose between a cube and a plane. And once you've chosen your object, you can scale it by moving left and right on the joystick. By pressing your primary button, you can choose a position for your object, for your cutting object, and you can make small adjustments with this adjustments menu. For instance, if I want to rotate about the y-axis, I can use these green buttons here to rotate it by 1 degree each time. Let's say I'm happy with this position. I can choose cut. The area that's going to be cut will turn blue, and you just need to wait a little while and it will generate the new mesh. By default, the new mesh will be a child of the object that was used to cut it. So if I move the main part, the cut will move with it. However, using the hierarchy menu, I can select the object and I can move it down and out of the mandible, and now it'll move independently of the mandible. I'll just undo that, and now you'll see that it is stuck to the mandible. With the coloring tool, I can both change the color of the background, and I can choose colors to paint the objects in the scene. So here, if I choose a green for the skull and a lilac for this part that I just cut out, it'll help you more easily differentiate on the hierarchy menu and in the scene the parts that you are working with. With the annotation tool, I can place annotations and I can record voice memos. With the primary button, hello, this is a voice memo. Hello, this is a voice memo. You can record voice memos, which you can play back with the play button. Hello, this is a voice memo. With the annotation. You can toggle the visibility of the annotation from the offhand UI and using these little icons here. And any memo that you have selected and that you're writing to will appear in front of the others. Next, we have the measurement tool. Initially, the measurement tool places markers which scale with the world so that you can always easily distinguish them and read the numbers on them. From the offhand UI, you can toggle their visibility and you can remove them. By pressing the secondary button, you can enter protractor mode if you want to measure an angle. And with the primary button, you can enter ruler mode if you want to measure a distance. These measurements also update in real time when you move parts that they're associated with. The next tool we have is the X-ray tool. When a model is uploaded, you can associate an image sequence with it, and that way the X-ray tool can display the appropriate image for the height that it slices. And with the joystick, you can move it left and right to change the elevation of the slice in the model. Finally, we have the mandible replacement mode. In this mode, you have a mandible replacement tool, and with the laser pointer and the trigger, you can place points onto meshes in the scene to create a path for the fibula to follow. And with the primary button, you can point and click on models in the scene to change their materials to a transparent material. With the offhand UI, you can both select points and remove them. With the secondary button, if you hold it down, you can move points. And for the start and end point, you can also rotate the terminating planes. With the joystick, if you move it left and right, you can tilt the fibula, and up and down you can rotate the visualization box so that you can get a better view of your slices. With the grip button, if you move it into the bounding box here, you can slide it along the fibula to choose a different position for the slices to start. And with the offhand UI, you can change the margins between the slices if any of them appear to be overlapping. Here you can see this orange and purple segments are quite close together, so I can increase their margin. And now they're no longer overlapping, and perhaps the green and the orange too. Once I'm happy, I can choose Accept, and it will generate a mesh for me, and it will take you back to the scene. With the hierarchy, you can choose models in the scene, and you can both lock them so that you can no longer select them, and you can choose to hide them. For instance, if I wanted to hide this section of the mandible that I cut out. You can also change the parental relationships between models. For instance, this fibula replacement part here, which I will just enter pivot mode and align the pivot with the global coordinates. This piece is independent of the other pieces in the scene, but maybe I want it to be a child of the mandible, so that when I move the mandible, it'll move as well. To do that, I can select it and parent it up into the skull, parent it up into the mandible. I think that's it. I will just save the scene to demonstrate that the offline version of the scene is now updated. That is the wrong scene. I was working on scene 5, which it is. Of course, you don't have access to the cutting tool, and in mandible replacement, you don't have the ability to generate your meshes.